to see how we got more to say. Except that these guys have been awesome. We have worked on this idea when we, originally the studio said, listen, as far as Manhattan goes, what about just painting the actor blue? That could be cool. And I said, yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to be a complete dork about this and be mean and say, no, I need, him to be completely CG, but, it does create a lot of problems immediately, like, okay, what actor is, going to be able to emote like Billy does, because Billy's pretty awesome, and be ripped up, and willing to, be nude. And also then you have an issue with just how people are going to take that, if we have to, put a prosthetic on him or something like that. I've seen that, right, in the movies they do that sometimes. Not often. So, these are, and then, plus then he has to glow. So then we say okay, well then we'll just cover him with a little CG. It's like, okay, well, it's like being a little pregnant, I think, it's starting down a road that ends up with, and we did explore that a bit. It wasn't like we were completely against it. We talked about it. Someone had done an independent test for us. I won't say what visual effects company.
Wasn't us.
Was it? And they had taken a guy, painted him blue, and shaved his head, and then tried to make him look a little bit wiggly. He looked like Zombie or something. He looked like he was Zombie. I don't know if any of you are familiar with who Zombie is, but it's not Manhattan. And so, I mean, the one cool thing about the movie coming out now, other than that we did it, which is pretty cool, but the other cool thing is that would have been the solution. How long ago do you think that would have been the solution other than a really crazy looking Dr. Manhattan? If we had made the movie 5 years ago, we couldn't have done it. No. He wouldn't have looked he would have looked like a ghost or something. And puppets, nice. That would have been a lower tech cool way to do it too, with puppets. That would have been nice. Anyway, and so, we did arrive, I think, and happily at a pretty cool Manhattan. Billy Crudup is an amazing actor, and I think one of the things that I asked of these guys was that, Billy is hilarious when he's like, they're going to erase me and put another guy in there. Really, it was painstaking to keep Billy in the movie, because it was really about, the biggest challenge was keeping Billy's acting in the movie, because it's so good. And so when we talked about how we were going to do that, that was some of the earliest conversations that we had. We had cast Billy. Maybe if we had cast an actor that wasn't as good as Billy, I would have been like, okay, no, don't worry about him. It's not that great. So we should really work on some cool performance. But since we had Billy and I'd already cast him, I was like, oh fuck, now we're screwed. Because we've got Billy, and he's got to end up in the movie. And so that was a lot of work. Even when you watch the video, he's constantly having to do these crazy exercises. We'd all leave, we'd be done shooting, okay, that was great, guys, I go home. And Billy would have to stay there with the video guys, shooting his expressions, and his raising his arms and lowering them. It's like, this is so dorky. That was cool.
Let me just ask a couple of questions. At what point in the process did you get to the point where, wow, it's going to be much better to really make him the light source as opposed to laying that in later at some point? And secondly, how different is this, and how much more advanced is this process than what was done, for example, in Lord of the Rings with Gollum, in terms of creating that character?
That's a good. I can just say, as far as the light source, I'll let them talk about Gollum. I have no idea. I saw that in the movie theater, but that was a long time ago, and he was pretty cool. The light source part was pretty. As soon as we knew he was CG, he had to be a light. So we experimented and talked about all sorts of things. We talked about, they make this kind of flat, panel LED that looks like fabric. Remember that? We talked about doing that, but doesn't bend, really. Yeah, like if Dr. Manhattan was the shape of a placemat, that would have been perfect. Because he'd be like this flat glowing thing. It might have been done, actually. So, yeah, so we did that, and I think it was, but there was a lot of cool attention to detail, like, you know, putting the lights on the bottom of the feet is pretty cool. Stuff like that, when he showed up, it was pretty cool. And what about Gollum?
Well, actually, I want to say one thing too about the light source thing. I remember it was January, it was when I first met you, January 25th or something like that, 2007.
So January 25th was when we decided that he should be a light.
Because we were just talking about it, and we realized that it's not only the light source thing, but it solves a lot of shooting problems as far as having, being 60 feet tall or 200 feet tall, or 4 of them in one scene. And the idea there was if we have 4 light suits and Billy's the featured one all the time, Zack can just shoot the whole scene like they're 4 Manhattan is. We don't have to do any repeat pass, within the sort of formats of repeat pass that he did, so that Pete gets to embrace the character elegantly later.
I mean, we would have 4 guys just for like body doubles. They were relatively the same size as Billy, give or take a few inches, but I didn't think that was going to matter as much as it does.
A lot of that.
Yeah. But yeah, so we just had them all just kind of get behind Billy and then duck down. That was really high tech.
And then I think that the whole idea of doing this and how advanced it is, it definitely is growing from the roots of what they did with Gollum and what they did on the set. Although what they did with Gollum was an actual motion capture rig on the set. By the time they got to the other movies, on the set. And I think ours has a lot of roots more in what Island did with David Jones. So that's cool.
Kill the mics. Oh! That speaker just caught on fire.
I would back off, perhaps.
What's your stuff on?
I think it blew because they knew what my next question was going to be. Which is the question that I know that all these fans who have read the book are very curious about, which is, Zack, you've gotten a lot of questions, certainly from the press and fans, and from those who have seen the movie and seen how faithful you've been to the material and just happy and proud of it. You have here one significant which is in the book, given the tripping artist that he is, your Dr. Manhattan is perhaps a little closer to Michelangelo and David in some respects than others. But in the movie, I would say you diverge from that to perhaps, I don't know, a more godlike state. They talk about that process going to be in the clip. And I want to assure people that it's in the clip.
You're talking about Dr. Manhattan. Cock, aren't you? That was tricky. Kids. That's good. Yes. And maybe it's because I got to know Billy and I knew that he would be mad at me if I didn't like the book. You can all take a look at the book. And Dave, I guess, was like, at the time, probably he was sitting in the studio, I'll have to ask him, and was like, oh, jeez, I guess Manhattan has to be naked, but it's a comic book, right? So, what do I do? How big do I go? And he showed restraint, I gotta say, which is a good and bad thing, I think, for, a young man reading the book at the time. I kind of thanked him in my mind a little bit. But I think over time we've all, you get comfortable and then you're just like, hey, everyone can handle this, right? So I think that was the why of it. Well, what happened is, I don't need to talk so much about penises, but I'll try and get this cleared up or squared away. I don't know what to say. But there was believe it or not, Dr. Manhattan is not, none of it happens by accident, so there was a very long process on the actual, like, they showed me it's called a wedge, and it's a quick